Well, a good Tuesday evening, everyone. I promised I would give an update on dangerous Hurricane Irma, a major hurricane, a Category 5 hurricane on the Saffir-Simpson scale. It is the highest category. Sustained winds up to 185 miles per hour, gusts over 200 miles per hour. Its minimum pressure is down to 916 millibars, which now puts it at 11th strongest hurricane in the Atlantic Basin known to us. I say known to us because the hurricanes have been around a lot longer than people. It is moving west, if anything, 10 degrees north of west at 13 miles per hour. It's going to be hitting the islands in the northern Antilles, and eventually we'll be watching it. Turks and Caicos, this looks horrible. So let's go ahead and first take a look at a loop satellite. And again, it's flipping over from different imagery as we head to nighttime. And you can see the eye of the storm, very impressive as it's starting to approach some of the islands out there. Worst, when you take and you draw, and let me go ahead and draw on here. When you draw a path of a storm and it goes this way, well, to the right of where that eye goes, that's where the strongest winds would be of a hurricane. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is all 8 o'clock advisory information. National Hurricane Center, their intermediate advisory. I have on here the 3-day because that is where we are most confident. Their cone of uncertainty anywhere in the white. It passes by Puerto Rico late tomorrow. But if you remember, Puerto Rico will be on the left side of the storm. It's going to be a horrible hurricane for them. However, maybe not catastrophic for Puerto Rico, and that's good news because they have so many financial problems. Turks and Caicos really going to get hit hard. They are in a very bad position for this storm. The Dominican Republic, the storm looks like it's going to pass just north of there, so they're on the weaker side of the storm. Interesting thing is if you get the storm, and that's still in the cone of uncertainty, if you get the storm to pass over that land, there are a lot of mountains, and that can interrupt the inflow and weaken the hurricane a little bit. Not saying it's going to happen, but again, most of the Hurricane Center track is north of the Dominican Republic. And by Friday evening, approaching Friday afternoon approaching Cuba and maybe making landfall. Let me go ahead and put the full forecast on there. Maybe making landfall on Cuba Saturday afternoon. And then we have to watch for the Florida Keys. Now, I have friends down there. I'm very concerned if this does pass near Cuba and passes south of Florida, the Florida Keys are going to be on that bad side of that hurricane. And that would be devastating. So that is, and they already have had mandatory evacuation of people who are not for all the visitors. I hope the residents realize they, in their lifetime, haven't dealt with something like this. Yes, you've dealt with hurricanes, but if this keeps strength, like it looks like it may, if it misses Cuba, if it misses the Dominican, and it's a Category 4 or 5 hurricane, the Florida Keys have really not had that kind of hit in anyone's lifetime down there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the spaghetti plots. Again, computer models run over and over again, and you can see here the Hurricane Center. This is the guidance for it, and you can see that a lot of the plots take it just north of Cuba, and then all of a sudden it gets picked up with the trough and moves inland, or stays off the coastline, or some still take it out into the Gulf of Mexico. So everything is still on the table. This is really early still for this storm. It's so far away. If it avoids the islands, like these plots say, that is a big issue. Some of the plots take it up into the Ohio Valley, some take it off the East Coast, and I will still not rule out some of the Gulf of Mexico and the Florida Panhandle as of yet. And let's go throw one more. This is the Canadian ensemble plots. And again, anywhere from the Atlantic out into, and I agree with this, that this is still a bit on the table. You know, everything's still on the table until we make a connection with that trough that's digging into the United States, and it's going to bring us cool weather this week. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the models. This is the GFS. I threw on here mean sea level pressure and also winds. There's the wind scale. There's over 64 knots. You can see the strongest winds north of the eye as it rakes across and passes north of Puerto Rico. Now, this 18 Zulu GFS really jogged the storm to the north. I'm not sure I totally agree with just such a move like that. This would be devastating for a lot of the Bahamas. Look at that. Moves it right across the Bahamas and keeps pressure sub 900 and then moves it northward and takes it into the Carolina coastline. Now let me go ahead and show you though. This is the 18 Zulu run and there was the 12 Zulu. So definitely farther north and east. So even where now it's taking it in on the Carolina coastline, the 12 Zulu run had it back farther to the south. I'm not sure I totally agree with that, but it's something we're going to keep an eye on. And it brings a little bit of wind up here in the remnants of the system, but nothing too bad, and it gets just swallowed up with the trough and moves off to the east. So that was the GFS. Let's go ahead and take a look now at the European. They are differing in opinion a little bit, so there we go. And again, this is, let's see if I can get there we go. Got the ISO bars on here too. It takes it a little bit closer to Puerto Rico, but Puerto Rico is still on the good side of things. And here we go. Friday travels right along Cuba, tries to make landfall in Cuba. If this happens, that will weaken the storm some. And then do you see how it takes it all the way across the land of Cuba, which would weaken that storm? Devastating situation there for Cuba. So the European a little farther to, well, a lot farther to the south, and that's what's bringing it across Cuba. And then still bad situation for the Florida Keys. Very concerned about the Florida Keys. And then takes it up the west side of Florida. Now, if you're moving northward, the strongest winds are going to be right of the track. So the strongest winds would be on this side of the storm. So let me go ahead and fix this for you. Okay, so if the track of the storm goes this way, it's right at a line that will have the strongest winds and heaviest rainfall. So that is something we're going to continue to watch. So let me go ahead and move this forward. And this takes it from Cuba across Florida and then sharply diminishes the system and moves it on out. Now, a lot of folks here in central Pennsylvania asking about rainfall. So I thought I would show you rainfall on the computer models. Remember, this is including, let me move over to the total precip. Here we go. This is including, the showers that we're having now. We're going to have some rainfall for tonight. But there, you see that track of that extreme rainfall there, tracking just north of Cuba? So this European is taking it, dropping a tremendous amount of rainfall in Cuba, and then making a hook up into Florida. Now, it's not going to stall out. It's not going to stall like Harvey, and therefore it's not going to bring the rainfall that Harvey did. I mean, you're still talking about 1 to 2 feet of rainfall, but you're not talking about 4 or 5 because this thing's going to move. And most locations in Florida in this scenario here are going to stay under 15 inches of rainfall. I mean, it's still devastating, but if you notice, never really brings a lot of rainfall here. And this is total through the whole entire period. So we have other rain events in there too. So European doesn't bring a lot of rainfall our way. Let's go ahead and take a look at the 18Z GFS. Let me go ahead and throw the precipitation on here. Let me move myself for a second. Here we go. All right. Again, we have some showers around here early on. There's the track of heavier rainfall. It takes it more, not across Cuba, the heavy rainfall, but more across the Bahamas, and then takes and keeps the heavier rainfall off the coastline. So this would be worse news for the Carolinas if the GFS is right. Better news for Florida. My gut feeling is I'm leaning more to the European. I'm still not throwing out the Gulf of Mexico solution where it goes out into the Gulf That's something we will have to keep an eye on. It is going to make a turn eventually. And the GFS, again, does not bring the heavy rain all the way up here. So if you're worried about heavy rainfall, it looks like we're going to be spared the worst of that. All right, well, tune in tonight on WTAJ News at 11 o'clock. I will have the latest advisory. That comes out at 11 on Irma. Don't worry about Jose. That's going to stay out in the ocean. But we'll have the latest on that. I'll talk about a very cool weather pattern that will be with us here in central Pennsylvania throughout the week. All those details on WTAJ News at 11.